Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to be starting off just by introducing Allan, or reintroducing Allan, actually, because you've been on Soundbites before, Allan, and it went down a storm, and you've kindly agreed to come back and do another session, a different type of session. So thank you ever so much.
I appreciate you having me back.
No, it's a pleasure. And just to say from the get-go that Allan's previous episode, which was absolutely brilliant, really interesting, is on the Stewarts Soundbites website. I don't think people give out URLs anymore, so if you just Google Stewarts Soundbites, you'll find it. And that gives a lot of background into kind of Allan's journey over the last 20-ish or more years. But Allan's now a coach and a counsellor, and we were just talking about this before we started. Allan coaches and counsels people on all sorts of different issues. He deals with a lot of people with mental health problems. And Allan sustained a spinal cord injury. It was over 20 years ago. Don't want to give away your age, Allan, but you know.
22 September.
Wow.
Yeah, so, it's coming up to 22 years next month.
My goodness, so a long time ago. So you've kind of learned to deal with chronic disability, I suppose, Allan, for a long time.
Yeah, I've been disabled longer than I was able-bodied.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, which is a big thing, really. You know, my life now is, well, now it has been as a disabled. So growing up as an adult, as learning to negotiate the difficulties, really.
Yeah, of course. And there are so
we'll
many.
We'll go on to more because there's the hidden ones, which we'll go on to more in this with it.
Yeah. And I was going to say, there's so many topics that we could talk about because you have so much experience.
Should have just recorded that first conversation me and you ever had. That just covered.
I know we were on the phone for ages. You're right. But today we're talking about something very specific and something very important. That we kind of had this conversation, said, you know, it's something that is sensitive, it's something that's personal, but it's something that's actually really important. And that's all about kind of sex and dating and relationships kind of after spinal cord injury. There's not that much stuff out there about this, which I was quite surprised at. I don't know if I was surprised, but you know, there really isn't. But I thought as a good starting point, Allan, just to recap for anybody that hasn't seen your previous episode, and I do encourage people to watch it, just tell us a wee bit about your accident, your injury, if you don't mind.
So when I was 17, I was in the sixth form at school, and my friend had just passed his driving test. So we took a girl home on a free period because it was raining, a bit of a crappy day. We were coming along a country road doing 50 miles an hour, so underneath the speed limit by 10 miles an hour. And an old gentleman just decided to pull out in front of us. We smashed into him and hit a tree. I got airlifted to Hull Royal, got operated on, I'd broken C4, 5 and 6. So I've got metal plate in the front, metal plate in the back. Spent 8 months in Pinderfields on the spinal unit in Wakefield. I got given 5% chance of using my limbs again. Lucky enough, I got very lucky, but worked very, very hard at the same time. And I managed to walk out of Pinderfields as an 18-year-old boy. And then tried to get back into society, really struggled, got given a very, very large compensation package and managed to spend it all because, like I've said previously, I couldn't ask for help. I didn't know what to do, and I had a lot going on in my head, which made me make very bad decisions.
Yeah, and for more on that, see previous episodes, we talked about that loads, which was really super interesting, actually. And I think one of the most interesting things about this, Allan, is the age at which you had your injury, because you're such a young guy and kind of coming into the world of sex and dating, and that all being like kind of super central at that age. Did you feel that was really something that was, you know, kind of, was it something that you thought about early on?
Not so much when I was in the hospital bed, because you basically got everybody next to you. So it wasn't really so much. The main thing was in my head, which I think I mentioned in the previous episode, was get back into football. Just wanted to be back playing football. That was all I had going on in my head. It was only till I went home on my first weekend, and I was lucky. I've got function, so. My home, my bedroom was upstairs, so my mum and dad had my dining room converted into like it had a hospital bed in, it had a commode in, and you know, and things like that for me. So while I was alone, I decided to masturbate for the first time after after the accident. And when I ejaculated, my head felt like it was coming off. It's called dyslexia, and I can't. The only way I can describe it is it's not like a normal headache. It's like your brain is smashing against your skull to get out of your head, and it's instant. And I was like, "Whoa," you know. And I'm 17. No, I was 18. I got allowed home on my 18th birthday. So it was on the Saturday night. My birthday was on the Monday. So I was still actually 17, but my 18th birthday weekend. And I'm alone in this downstairs room of what's going on. And my head was just pounding. I was crapping myself thinking, what the hell is this? And then it wore off. But that scared the hell out of me moving forward. It really did scare me. And then I remember telling it was all to do with my compensation package. And I remember telling a doctor saying, this happens. It's the first time I'd ever kind of admitted it. And the doctor went, shit, really? Am I allowed to swear?
Don't worry, Allan, don't worry about it. We're all friends here.
Yeah, he went, shit, really? I went, yeah, we need to keep an eye on that. And it was this tone of his voice, how serious it was. And it really did scare me. So that was like my first introduction.
Kind of experience,
yeah.
And what I wonder, in the hospital, Allan, you've already kind of said to me before we started that you didn't really have any kind of discussions about function or about dating or relationships or anything in the hospital. Was there any discussion amongst other patients in the unit, or is it?
I remember going to down into a session in the OT room, and there was some discussion around Viagra, because Viagra kind of just come out. So there was some discussion around Viagra. And I think, to be honest, I kind of ignored it a bit because maybe it was my age, maybe a bit embarrassed, you're around other people. I was 18 at the time, and I did have sexual function, it worked. So I think I kind of I'm a bit embarrassed to be here, kind of. That's what I'm trying to remember. I think that's what I was like. So I didn't take much in from it, but there was no discussion on the ward. I remember speaking to a friend of mine who was in a chair, who told me about a sexual experience he had, and stuff that had happened to him, but that was about it. Yeah.
And what was your, I assume, Allan, that you were single at the time of your accident?
Yeah, I was, yeah.
So
I'm trying to get back in society. So I tried to get back in, and all my mates are all lads, typical good lads, going out, but trying to, down the nightclub, trying to pull and drinking and all that kind of stuff. And I just wanted to be that. I wanted to fit in and do all that. And I used to take a little, without anybody knowing, to try and give me confidence. I used to have a line of cocaine or something like that before I went out, to try and give me the confidence to talk to people, because I had this image in my head of what I wanted to be like, and I couldn't be that because I was quite shy. And I was scared of actually trying to get with girls and then have sex. And then a lot of time it wouldn't work. So I was trying to work it out in my head. And at 18, you don't want to say to any of your mates, I don't do it, because sometimes it doesn't work. Because guys still now don't want to say that. Do you know what I mean? And I'm 18 thinking, I can't tell people that it doesn't work. And that when it does, I feel like my head's going to fall off.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where, and we joke about it now, which I think that's my friend's sense of humor between us all, and we have such a good relationship, is they all used to call me the cuddler.
Right.
Because I'd get in bed and I'd have somebody attractive next to me, and I wouldn't do anything. I remember one night I used the excuse to one girl saying, "Oh, sorry, I've had too much Red Bull."
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it wasn't. I just couldn't do it. And whether sometimes it doesn't work, or whether it's in my own mind, but it's me scared of what's going to happen. And I was so scared of rejection as well. Do you know what I mean? It didn't work, and I was from a small town, and people were going to tell, and my mate's going to know that. Do you know what I mean? And it was petrifying. And like I said, they all called me the cuddler, which I suppose I joke about with them, but that's how we're dealing with it. But I couldn't speak up then. I should have done, but I didn't.
And you're an 18-year-old guy as well, Allan,
Exactly that. What 18-year-old wants to tell somebody, do you know what, it doesn't always work.
Yeah, but I think, from, dealing with people in spinal cord injury community, although it is a massive issue for you when you were 18 years old, obviously you're an 18-year-old guy, it's so widespread, really, isn't it? And,
Yes.
Do you think that there should be more of a discussion about it?
Massively. Take away the spinal cord injury. Guys don't want to talk about it because it's seen oh, macho, yeah, as long as you do this. What a load of rubbish.
Mm.
What a load of crap. And honestly, I get guys coming to see me in my counselling room, and obviously I won't disclose stuff, but they struggle to talk about their emotions because of the macho image.
Right.
And I'm like, well, macho image to me is somebody that can actually admit everything and talk about their feelings and go, actually, I know myself. If I want to have a cry, I can have a cry. That to me, that's what this macho is. But yeah, people think it's, like typical guy banter. Like it's a load of crap.
Yeah, yeah. And the dating world in and of itself is brutal as far as I can tell. And, got the emergence of dating apps and all that sort of thing. What was your experience of kind of, because I know that you're married now.
Yeah. I met my wife on Tinder. She
Right.
catfished me on Tinder. No, she didn't really catfish. It was just because she lives away. I'm joking about that. No, what happened was, so dating apps were around when I first had my accident, and like I say, I did okay. Do you know what I mean? It was just I wouldn't let. I think I mentioned this in the last podcast. I wouldn't let people close to me because I was. Do you know what I mean? I had some girlfriends that were great, but I kind of ended up not with them because I just wasn't okay with myself. And then I had a girlfriend before the dating apps, and I remember thinking, well, I can't be honest with her. And I used to get Viagra from the doctors without her knowing. And then I remember finding a prescription, and she Googled what it was. We ended up having a big argument about it because I couldn't have the discussion about, well, I don't ejaculate much because I'm scared of it. And if I change positions, I lose my erection. And I didn't feel comfortable with that person to be able to have these conversations.
Yeah.
But then dating apps, after I finished with that girl, dating apps came along, and well, actually, no, there was one before that one. There was Plenty of Fish. That was on that before, actually. Before that, but then Tinder came along, and yeah, and I think the best thing what I did was I was honest on them.
Yeah.
So I did a documentary, and it showed the way I walked. So I put a link to that on my description.
Wow.
So people could then do their own research. It wasn't me going, well, I've got a spinal cord injury, I've done this, kind of thing, and I have these. It was, if you want to do the research on me, it's there.
Yeah.
And I like one time, I don't know if I was mentioning this to people. I went and I'd had a date, and she'd not clearly done the research, and we were speaking and we were getting on great, and she was a so-called model, and it was brilliant. And I met her at this corner to go for a drink, and I could see her face change as soon as she walked in towards me. As soon as I was walking towards her.
Yeah.
And honestly, within a few mouthfuls of my pint, I could not wait to get out of there. And I was thinking of excuses to leave it. And I was like, do you know what? No matter how good looking somebody is, if you're not worth my time, because do you know what I mean?
So you just find the best way to address is just to be upfront and say, this is, yeah. It must be hard, it must be hard to do that, especially when you have something like Tinder. And I don't know much about Tinder, but I'm guessing that you have like a very public profile and anyone can look at it. But from what you're saying, the kind of the best way to address it is just to say, this is my situation. And, it's great because you've done a documentary. That's really quite handy in that way, isn't it?
It was just a link to on my YouTube. So, and people can do their own research and things like that. But I've met some great people through those sites as well. That's just one example of something being hard. But like I say, I met my wife through that. I've met other people on there that I'm still friends with. Do you know what I mean? Because they're good people. You just didn't click with them or something like that. Or,
sure. Yeah.
It's not so much right. It's all, so it's like we have this thing about sex and dating, don't we? But it's just about, you don't click with somebody physically or mentally, but they're still decent people.
Yeah. And what do you think would have helped, Allan? Do you think that it would have been helpful for you to have a discussion at an early stage, or, because it's lots of different things, isn't it? It's, a physical function, and it's also emotionally how to manage it. And, what do you think would have been helpful?
So leading on to this, and I'm sure my wife won't mind me saying this. So when I got with my wife, at the time we were just seeing each other. I didn't ejaculate for about 2 months, and it started to become a bit of a problem. Not a problem, but we had a discussion about it. And you know what? That helped massively, because I for once then opened up about, listen, I get these really bad headaches, and these can kill you. these headaches, you know what I mean? Or they can give you a stroke. And since I had that conversation, these headaches haven't gone away. They're still massive. But I've got this spray, which is supposed to work. And it doesn't happen every time. That's the thing. Since I had that discussion and opened up about these difficulties that I have, it's changed everything, because I don't seem to have that fear anymore. Like, I'm still scared of it happening because it hurts, but the fact I can communicate and go, do you know what? Sometimes I can feel it building up. My neck's tight. I can have that conversation and go, do you know what? I can't do this. It's going to explode. And it's not like I've got something to prove or someone's going to be annoyed at me or anything like that. I'm very lucky. But people, to just have that, going back to it, to have those conversations for guys, to have that conversation with somebody, because we, like I said, we have that much more, we can't admit that.
Yeah.
Why? Once you do admit it and go, well, this happens, we can move on, because that pressure's taken away from you, that, well, you've got to last half an hour, 2 hours, or what a load of rubbish as well. Do you know what I mean? It's image.
And we're running out of time, which I'm furious about, because it's such an important topic. But I wanted to just finish off, Allan. You've already kind of said, I was going to ask you a little bit about kind of your tips for people with spinal cord injury and addressing this stuff. And from what you've said, it's about being open and to having those conversations. But I'm also interested to know whether you think that people who work for people with spinal cord injury, so whether that's in a caring role or whether it's a case manager or a lawyer or anybody kind of around a spinally cord injured person that might be having these kind of thoughts and feelings but not necessarily expressing them, is there any advice that you can give to those people as to whether it's something that should be broached, whether that would be helpful, when, that sort of thing?
I wouldn't say something to be broached, but I think listening is a great, it's all right listening just off the cuff, but actively sitting down and letting that person know that you're there to listen and not judging them. Or not. And that's like, and that's the point of, it's great for people to open up, but then send them to somebody like myself or over counsel. Do you know what I mean? To go talk about it. It's not sat down there going, well, does that make you feel? And all softly, like, that's not my approach. It's like, listen, this happens. Let's normalize stuff. Because we're so far from not normalizing stuff. And take away the spinal cord injury. This happens to all guys. We don't want to admit, do you know what I mean? We focus on the spinal cord injury and just for them, but there'll be so many guys out there that might listen to this and go, do you know what, I struggle, but don't admit it.
And I understand that. And it's a private thing, it's a sensitive thing, and you naturally kind of,
and that's why I'm open today, that me doing this. Like, 'cause I was really nervous about doing this, I'm open talking about it, but today I was like, a bit nervous about this one, because there's two people that know that, and that's my wife and my best friend, know that I suffer really badly with these headaches. And like I say, I don't need to take Viagra every time, but sometimes I do, because if I want to try and, like, if I try and change positions and stuff like that, I mean, I can only ejaculate one way. Do you know what I mean? And people don't know this, and if it's hard, because you're having this amazing bit of passion and stuff like that, and then it's panic.
Absolutely.
Away, and it's really hard. And so I'm hoping that people might listen to this and go, do you know what? Yeah, it's all right to talk about. It's a bit of a taboo subject and all that kind of, but let's just speak about it.
Well, Allan, I couldn't be any more grateful to you for opening up about this stuff, because as you say, if anybody watching it has a similar experience or can relate to it, or just feels a bit of comfort from knowing that someone else has experienced it, or that there are people to talk to, then that will be great. And I thank you very much for sharing your
They're too short, these, aren't they?
They're too short. We could talk all day, couldn't we? But I know that we don't have time to take any questions or anything for you, but if anybody does have any questions about this stuff, or wants to speak to Allan, I'm sure I'm kind of offering you up on a platter there, Allan, but I'm sure you don't mind. You can email me. We'll, in the recording of this episode, we'll make sure that Allan's business email address is on the link, so that you can contact him directly if you want. I'm sure that we'll be able to come back to you if you do have any questions. But it just leaves me to say, Allan, thank you ever so much again for sharing. Well, it's such a personal thing for you, and it's a really important and interesting topic, and we're very, very grateful to you. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, we'll see you all again soon. Take care.